Hello, my name is Wes Estes, and I'm a local real estate agent with Remax Commonwealth. I'm excited about today's interview because I'm going to be talking with Jason Costanzo with Pagano Marks. Jason is a local attorney here in the area, and he does estate planning, or he specializes in estate planning and real estate. And depending on the time, I hope to ask him four questions. I'm definitely going to go over three questions with Jason, but I'm hoping to be able to hit that fourth one today if time allows. When you're closing, and this has to do with the first question, when you're closing on a house, you have a settlement agent. That settlement agent is either the title company or an attorney. You have one for the buyer and you have one for the seller. What is the difference between a title company and an attorney? What are the pros? What are the cons? The second is, how does an attorney help the client through the closing process? Third, what happens if you have a loved one and they pass away and their estate papers or planning documents are not in order? And then fourth, I want to talk a little bit about property rights. You know, the Constitution, the 5th and 14th Amendment of the Constitution actually discusses property rights and how they are protected. I am very excited about today. You'll not want to miss this interview, so stay tuned. Hey, Jason, thanks again for joining me today. I'm excited. I know everyone else that's going to be listening to this is going to be excited to hear your infinite wisdom when it comes to real estate. So the first question I have for you is, being a real estate agent, you know, we have title companies and we have real estate attorneys. What's the difference between the two?
Sure. And I get this asked a lot because individuals are always trying to figure out which way is the better way to go. I always recommend, if you can, try to have an attorney do your closing, just for the fact that obviously they help you out with any type of legal advice, and they can also draft documents. Now, title companies are great. And typically title companies work with attorneys because they cannot draft their own legal documents. And the one thing that we do help provide is that, to protect either buyer or seller on certain risks that are involved with closings. Those risks we can go over and tell them what alternatives they might have. A title company shouldn't be doing that. They should refer them to an attorney to do that. Then again, with drafting documents, contracts, addendums, maybe power of attorneys, documents that are needed for every kind of closing. Those attorneys can take care of that also. Title companies typically will reach out, or they should, to an attorney to draft those. And then also there's title issues that come about. Every time you do a closing, the other side sends you title work that has to be resolved. And sometimes those have judgment, liens, on there, and we have to make sure we get that taken care of before the closing date. And again, we can go over that, sometimes even have to take court action to resolve some of those issues, but at least we're able to do that. And then obviously provide sound legal advice. Just knowing what to expect, or if you run into that one issue, who to talk to about it, can definitely help out, because it's already a stressful process sometimes, selling or buying, especially in this kind of market. So having someone knowing what what to do, where to lean on, definitely helps out.
Right. Right. So is there a big cost difference between the two?
No, normally it's about the same price when it's all said and done. Typically, your title company will charge a fee for themselves and then a fee for the attorney that's drafting their documents or their deed. The attorney, as myself, we charge a flat fee that covers everything. So usually it might be maybe $50 to $100 difference. But when it's all said and done, if you have a legal issue, then you're having to pay for an attorney anyways outside of the closing, which is usually a lot more expensive than it is when you're involved in the closing. So that's a big benefit, is that you're not having to spend a couple $1,000s just to get legal advice or representation. You already have that happening, and they can tell you what to do or what you shouldn't do.
Right, right. And you say a flat fee, so that's great. So if a seller has a question, and you always hear this crazy, well, you pick up a phone, call the attorney, the clock's punching, and I mean, they can give you a call and there's not any additional fee if they have a question or anything like that when you're representing them?
Yes, sir. What we try to do is offer that as part of our services, to where that you can always give them a call. And to be honest, I've even given clients advice about not even real estate, sometimes traffic, even domestic, just because they want to have a question, that I really don't know an attorney. You're the first one I've spoken to. Can I ask you this question? Sure. I don't mind providing that extra service for them. And that's one thing that's really helpful, is that you can go to them and get that information or advice.
And that's great. And this is great information because, I mean, I don't know about most people, but for me, I mean, you're talking attorney. I'm not going to say you're intimidating, but it's somewhat like, oh my gosh, who do I call? What do I do? And just the fact to know that you're there to answer questions, which kind of dovetails into my second question I was going to ask you about. So the services that you provide as an attorney, you've kind of hit on some of them. Is there anything else along those lines that you provide with your company or yourself?
Yeah, like I said before, our biggest thing is we're going to walk the client through the process. So they're going to understand what's going on. And then we'll also draft all documents for them. So there's nothing that they actually have to worry about doing themselves for the most part. Typically, I tell my clients, all I need you to do is show up with an ID and maybe a voided check, and I'll take care of everything else for you. Because what that's going to happen is, we help them out while also getting judgments or payoffs for liens, because you have to get those payoffs beforehand before the closing. And a lot of times, if you haven't done that, you have no clue where to even start. So that's something else that we provide. Also, if there's other title issues, like I said before, or maybe we have a disinterest, maybe we have some type of individual that has a right to the property, so we need an affidavit signed for them to waive it, or just making sure that they get their money. That's my major goal, is to make sure that my client gets the proceeds at the sale, because the worst thing to do is go through this whole process for a month, maybe 2 months. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, well, we need a release. We got to get out of this. And then the person has to start all over again.
Right.
So my major goal is to make sure that that individual, we get through that process. And at the closing date, you get your money that you're supposed to receive, and everybody is going on their happy ways. And that's what like I said, I don't want to have it to where we're going through the process, because the worst thing to do is be stressed out, not knowing when this thing's going to close. Because as you know, in this market, it happens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it does. It really does. Probably more so than people think. But I mean, yeah, so that's good stuff to know there. All right. So let me ask you this question. So, we all have loved ones. We all have older parents. We have older siblings. Or what, when it comes to the estate documents and forms like that, how does that all play into the real estate picture? I know you talk a lot about that. I mean, talk to me a little bit more about that.
Sure. The one thing is that we want to try to avoid this probate process.
Yes.
And probate is when someone passes, someone has to go down to the courthouse for them, file some documentation, also list out heirs and list out assets, and then pay probate taxes on everything. What my main goal is to hopefully protect, your property so that the individuals get it like they should, and also try to alleviate the government getting involved as much as possible. So there's a couple of ways of doing that with your property, especially real estate. You can look at an LLC to help protect it. You can look at a trust agreement to help avoid that probate process, or maybe owning the property with someone else to make sure that if something happens to you, that other individual takes it over. And I've had one that is probably more popular now in the last couple of years. It's called a transfer on death deed. It's a deed that, we record at the courthouse. It doesn't convey the property to anybody right now, but it gives that beneficiary a future conveyance to the property. So if anything happens to that owner and they pass, the property automatically goes to the beneficiary listed and nothing else needs to be filed. So the creditors can't attach to it, and there's also going to be no probate taxes involved. The simplest way. Now, the second thing is, which I have a lot of individuals, if you have a rental property, that property should not be in your name. That should be in some type of LLC to help insulate your own assets. Because if not, you're opening up yourself to liabilities that might flow from that property. So talking about these type of things and protecting these ahead of time can really help out down the road. Because when you start dealing with no wills, no power of attorneys, no advanced medical directives, if you don't have a power of attorney advanced medical directive, someone might have to go down to the courthouse, file guardianship and conservatorship, spend a couple months in court, spend a couple $1,000s, and then hope the judge sees it their way and allows them to be guardian over that individual. And what a guardianship conservatorship allows is for you to act on someone else's behalf while they're alive. So having that power of attorney and advanced medical directive in writing will alleviate all that whole process, no hearings involved, everybody knows who's supposed to be there. And then the second thing is the will. Wills aren't as important as they once were, but they still make sure that the right individual receives whatever you have in your estate at the time of death. Because sometimes we forget things, or maybe we didn't include everything that we thought we had. And in the wills, you can also appoint who you want maybe to be guardian of your children. Obviously, that's not an end all be all, but it goes a lot further to see it in writing than to have someone say, well, so-and-so told me they want to be the guardian of their child. So there's different ways we can protect it. It's really great for when you have children, which, can also go into the whole trust agreement situation. But just having your estate documents not only benefits you, but it really benefits your family, the people receiving your things, and making sure that it goes to the right individuals. Because the worst thing you want to have done is have the government get involved and then dictate what's supposed to happen and who's supposed to be in charge of everything. So spending a little bit of money up front can definitely save a lot of time, hassle, and money in the back end.
Right. And you are able to do all that, prepare wills and all these documents that we're talking about right now, correct?
Yes, I handle all the estate planning and real estate here. They kind of come hand in hand a lot. Protecting your real estate, which is usually some of your biggest assets, and making sure that it flows the right way, because there's certain ways to protect against predators, but also the government. So just going through your documents, figuring out how you want all it to happen, definitely helps.
Okay. Well, good. That's good to know. Let me ask you this one last question here, because I had this brought up to me. There's a lot of construction and stuff going on, and I noticed that several of the houses along a particular road, their yards are kind of being taken over. And in fact, they're actually putting one road right through where there was no road before, through a person's yard, to allow the flow of traffic in the area that I live in. So one of my friends asked me, well, how does all that work? I know the 5th and 14th Amendment has something to do with that. Is that correct? I mean, the government just can't come in, or can they, and just say, hey, we need this, therefore we need it, or some private company come in and say, we need your land to better enhance us. How does all that kind of play out?
Basically a yes and a no. What you have is that's called eminent domain. Basically when the government is trying to take your property for some type of use. Now, the 5th Amendment talks more about that. The government has to provide just compensation. So they can't just take your property and give you nothing for it. They have to provide you some type of money for it to be able to take it, which usually could be like for roads, or maybe even putting in type of like electric lines or telephone lines. Now, the 14th Amendment is more about the procedure, that they have to do certain things before they can go ahead and take that property from you, which is obviously they have to put some type of notice. And there has to be an opportunity to be heard. That's their chance to kind of go and kind of be heard and let them know their grievances or concerns as to why it should not happen. I'll be honest, most of the time, unless you have a lot of backing, it's kind of hard to fight the government when they do that. So the biggest thing you want to do is make sure you get that compensation. Now, I will say, Virginia did change some laws in 2012 where they made it a little harder for the government just to take what they want. Basically, in 2012, they declared that it was a right to own property is fundamental. So they're no longer going to allow property to be taken for a private individual or for a private use. So what they were doing in the past was that the government was taking property from individuals and giving it to other individuals that had a better fit for it. Virginia said, nope, we're not allowing that anymore. You can no longer use it for private or private opportunity. It has to be for public use only, which once again, most of the ones that you'll see are for like roads, sidewalks, right, will be the biggest ones where they actually take property. And sometimes you can give them access to your property and a right to use your property, but not actually take it away from you. And that's usually more for like telephone lines or running any type of piping underneath the ground that might need to be done for the government also.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Well, Jason, hey, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to chat with me about this information. What's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Sure. Usually the best way for me is to call our main office at 804-447-1002. Usually someone will be able to answer the phone and get you connected with me, or if need be, we can always schedule a time to go ahead and discuss a matter later on. And the second way is email. I'm sometimes in court, and it's the easiest way for me to be able to read or kind of receive a message about what's going on. So one of those two ways are great ways to contact me. Our website too, they can always get through also. So we have multiple ways to make sure that we can talk about whatever situation they have going on. Terrific.
Well, guys, I had the good fortune today of talking with Jason Costanzo with Pagano Marks. Appreciate it, Jason. And if anybody has any questions, he told you how to get in touch with him. Thanks again and have a great day.
Thanks, Wes. I really appreciate it.